It's right in the middle of the page, at the beginning of the line. It's Kuf Zayin Amud Bais, 107b, we're half a side behind. Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbanan taught in a Braisa, L'yitin Adam Prusa L'shamish. A guest at the table should not give a piece of food to the shamus. Shamus is the waiter. Bein shakos biyadai. Bein shakos biyadai shel balabais. Whether the cup is in his hand, doesn't say his hand, maybe the guest's hand, or whether the cup is in the hand of the balabais. Why? Shamir dvar takala besuda. Maybe it's in the shamus's hand.
Cup is a cup of wine.
A cup of wine. Cup of wine. Cup of wine. Okay. And the problem is because something bad could happen. A kalkala. Something could happen. What could happen? So it's possible that the host is very concerned about how much food he has. He has a portion for each guest. This guest feeds the waiter. He's watching that, and he's getting concerned that he's not going to have enough food for the guest, so he could choke on the wine. Or maybe the shamus may spill some wine into the food. So don't serve the waiter.
Basically, no tipping the waiter during the meal.
While there's a cup in someone's hand.
Food, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so v'hashamish leinatel yadav asalitin prisolateich piv. The shamish that didn't wash his hands, you shouldn't put a piece of bread.
Isn't that obvious?
Into his mouth. Well,
the
Gemara before, it's very interesting because the Gemara before had this whole discussion. If someone feeds you, do you need to wash your hands because you're not touching the food? Someone's feeding you. The real interesting thing is that this seems to be a new Gemara. The Gemara didn't bring. This is such a clear proof that you need to wash your hands even when someone feeds you. And yesterday's Gemara didn't bring this as a proof. This is a new Tanaraman. It should have brought this as a proof, and we would have had our answer. So the Mefarshim say,
how does this show that he has to wash?
Don't feed a shamus if the shamus didn't wash his hands.
Don't put it in his mouth.
It's a clear proof, right? So yesterday we had a Gemara that Rav Huna bar Schaira was feeding Rav Hamnuna, and he said, if you're not Rav Hamnuna, I wouldn't have fed you. And that could be because we know that Rav Hamnuna wouldn't have touched the food. So here it could be where we're not so sure the shamus won't touch the food while he's feeding him. So really a person that we know won't touch the food doesn't need to wash. The shamus does need to wash. The servant does need to wash. But it's really no proof. That's why the Gemara before didn't bring this as a clear proof that you need to wash your hands, because it could be the shamus was going to touch the food and you can rely on that. Our question was someone that won't touch the food. Okay. However, on this Braisa, you introduced this. Iboilahu, the yeshiva asked, what about the one that's feeding? Not the one that's eating.
Sweet.
The one that's feeding. Does the one that's feeding need to wash his hands? Tashima, come and listen to this Braisa. The Tanir, the Bais Menachem, was taught in the yeshiva of Menachem. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer. Reb Shimon. Yeah, you would know. No, I don't think so. Does he say anything over there? Sometimes he has personalities. It's like Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel or Tana Debei. There must have been a Menachem that had a collection of Brises.
Have you heard of his name before?
Yeah, we've had it before, but it's not as common as the others.
Okay. Sorry.
So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer, it was taught in the house of Menachem that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is a little confusing if it's this Reb Shimon ben Gamliel or this Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Usually, I think that we assume that it's Rebbe's father, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel.
Menachem was before.
And Menachem would have been after, that has this collection of Brises. And it was taught in the house of Menachem that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said, Isha mediches yada achas b'mayim. A woman can wash one hand in water. When I send us pas libna, and she can feed her son, libna cotton to her, she can feed her young son. It's talking about on Yom Kippur. In Kippur, you're not allowed to wash your hands. But a woman is going to feed her son, she has to wash her hands. What do we see? That the one that feeds has to wash their hands. Nice proof.
Yes,
Whoever touches the bread. So
Not the one that's eating, the one that's feeding needs to wash. That was our question
whoever
now.
touches the bread needs to wash it.
That's what we're seeing from this. Amru Lav al Shammai Azaken. They said regarding Shammai, the elder. Shammai is way before it is up here. Yeah, Shammai, Hillel and Shammai there on the top. So they said about Shammai that Shlei Ratz Lahachal Biyadei Achas. The Gazral of Sheachal B'Shtei Yadayim. Shammai was very strict. He didn't want to even wash one hand. So he wasn't going to feed his child. I don't know what his child's name was. But
Yom Kippur.
On Yom Kippur. So they made a gzeira, they decreed against him, the other rabbis, that he needs to wash both his hands and feed with both hands. So, to make sure that his children will get fed on Yom Kippur. So this seems to be a proof that the one that's feeding needs to wash their hands. Amar Abaya. Abaya says it's not a proof. Why? Hasam Misham Shibsha. Over there, Rashi says, over there the woman didn't wash her hands in the morning. Negelwasser. So we're dealing with the spirit that's on the hands. This is a different sort of washing. When it comes to eating bread, the one that's feeding doesn't need to wash the hands before because they're not eating. Over here, you need to wash your hands before you touch food because you didn't wash negelwasser. You didn't wash in the morning. Taisvus takes issue with Rashi. This Taisvus Hassam, it starts on the top. Taisvus says, what's going on? It sounds like, according to Rashi, that you don't wash your hands for negelwasser on Yom Kippur. Unless you're feeding a child. But we have a clear Gemara that says if your hands are dirty, you're allowed to clean them. And there's no bigger dirt than getting this evil spirit off your hands when you wake up in the morning. That's real dirt. So everyone's allowed to wash their hands for that. So what are we concerned about here? That the woman washes her hands. If everyone washes their hands on Yom Kippur in the morning. And we're not concerned about washing for bread. So what is it? So Taisvus quotes Rabbi Hananel that says that there was an evil spirit, a ruach ra, that was on the person that was eating al ha'ichol pair. There was an evil spirit on the food. If someone would feed a child that was 4 or 5 years old, that the child could choke, God forbid, if he doesn't wash his hands. Even though he washed his hands in the morning. And it's not talking about the washing of the hands for bread, which is washing because of, it's like truma and all of that. It's a different sort of washing. He says, we don't see this today. He says, well, we don't see other things today either. We don't see people take 2 cups, which Zugais, the Gemara Pesachim makes a big deal, that's very dangerous, to have 2 cups of anything. And we also not worried about things that are left overnight, galoi, some things that are opened overnight. He says we're also not worried about this as well. So it's like a important taisvus here, where he says that there's things that the Gemara discusses we're not worried about anymore. Tashma, come and listen to this. Davua de Shmuel Ashkei Shmuel de Kabachi. Shmuel's father, on the top of the next chart, see Avua de Shmuel up there? Shmuel's father sees Shmuel is crying. He sees his son Shmuel that's crying. Amar lei, amai kabachas. He says, why are you crying? He says, Demachin Rabbi. My Rabbi hit me. In Europe, this would be, the Rebbe hit you? Okay, there's another patch. No, that's not how it works. Amai, why did he hit you? The Amar Li, because he said to me, Kasafis Libroi v'lai mashisa yadecha. I changed it because Rashal changes it. You fed to my son and you didn't wash your hands. That means it must have been that he was learning in the Rebbe's house and the Rebbe's child was there. Shmuel must have gave some food to the child, but Shmuel didn't wash his hands. So the father says, so why didn't you wash your hands? So Amalei, hu achal v'ana mashina? The child's eating, I'm supposed to wash? He's the one that should wash. Amalei, he says to him, now, I would like to say, based on the Sheiltais, that he says to him means he says to the Rebbe. But our Gemara seems, he says to Shmuel. It's very uncomfortable to learn that pshat. I like the Shiltis better, but he says, "Lei mistayed legomer mimchana mimachi." Not only doesn't he know the halacha, but he even hits. Now, I would like that the Rabbi, Abu the Shmuel told it to the Rabbi, not to Shmuel. That's not the best thing to tell, but whatever the situation, I guess he had to be there. The v'hilchasa, what's the halacha? Eichel machmas meichel. Someone feeds you. Someone's putting food into your mouth. So then tzarich netilas yadayim. The eichel, the one that's eating, needs to wash his hands. He may touch the food while he's eating. The one that's eating needs to wash his hands. But meichel, the one that's feeding, ain't tzarich netilas yadayim, doesn't need to do netilas yadayim. So if someone's feeding a child, the mother doesn't need to wash their hands. But if the child is of age, then the child should wash his hands. If it's chinuch or whatever, that would be the case. What about a sick person, an elderly person that can't eat on their own? The one that's feeding clearly doesn't need to wash their hands. That's mefurish. But the one that's eating, so the poskim say that if the person would not be able to touch the food on their own, then you don't have to be concerned. This is only where, even though it says here v'hilchasa, that the halacha is that the one that's eating needs to wash the hands. That's because there's a concern that the person may touch the food. But if it's in a situation where the person won't end up touching the food, then
Or the case went before by Yom Kippur where the mother is supposed to wash.
Oh, so the Gemara said that's because of Shivsa. Shivsa is either, according to Rashi, Negelvasser, or it's some other evil spirit that... Okay. Now we jump into the Basar B'chalav. The first simon is Peches, right? The Mishnah says, a person can wrap meat and cheese in one cloth, as long as they don't touch each other. We're going to see in the Gemara what's the issue if they do touch each other. So I guess they would have a cloth, and you would, put the cheese over here, you would wrap this, put the meat there, and then you'd wrap it like that. That way it's like separated in the towel.
You can use a single bag from Publix or from South Florida.
So, you can put it at as long as there's a separation, you can put it both into the same bag. Right. You can have one refrigerator, for sure. As long as they don't touch. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, again Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Shnei achsanaim, 2 guests in an inn. Oichlen al shulchan echad, they could eat at the same table. Zeh basar v'zeh gavina. This one can have his meat, and this one will have his cheese. Ve'ein choshishin, and there's no concern.
We discussed this earlier, right?
And we're going to get into this again, right? We'll see in a minute. The Gemara says, "V'china izgeya zeh b'zeh mai havi." The Gemara asks on the Mishnah, it says as long as they don't touch. You can put them in the same wrap as long as they're not touching. It says, and if they are touching, what's the big deal? Tzainin b'tzainin have it. It's both cold. What's the problem? The problem is absorption. If it's cold, there's no absorption. So Amar Abaya says, Nehida klipa leibai. I understand you don't have to cut a piece off, but hadachami leibai, you still have to wash it. Could be a little bit of juice or grease from the meat or from the cheese. That what's our concern? Concern is you may forget to wash it. Don't do anything that's going to require you to wash it, and then we're going to be concerned that you may forget to wash it. So don't let it touch in the first place. Now, of course, if it touched, then you wash it. Okay. The poskim discuss, and the Shulchan Aruch discusses, that things that would need to be washed anyway is not a problem. So, for example, the meat, where you have to wash it before it's salted. So then, what do you mean I'm going to forget to wash it? I have to salt it. Of course I'm going to wash it. So over there, it wouldn't be a problem. You would have a problem with the cheese, but not a problem with the meat. That's Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Aimer. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Shnei achsana neichen al shulchan chula. It's a very interesting discussion in this, if you remember from the Shulchan Aruch. We'll see. There's 2 guests that are eating at a table. Amar Rav Chanan Barami Amar Shmuel. Rav Chanan Barami says in the name of Shmuel. Shmuel we had. He was the one that was crying a few minutes ago. And he's up here. Rav Chanan Barami is not in here. So he says, Lo Shanu, this was only taught, Ella, only, Lo Shanu Ella, by the way, is Bameh Devarim Amurim. In the Mishnah, it says Bameh Devarim Amurim. When were these words said? In the Gemara, it says Lo Shanu Ella. It's the same thing. So, this was only taught, She'in Makirin Zeh, when they don't know each other, when they don't recognize each other. They can sit at the same table, and they can each eat their lunch, and it's not a problem. But if they recognize each other, then they're not allowed to sit at the same table. So here we have a classic example of the first generation Amirayim qualifying what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says it's not a problem, and comes along Shmuel and says, yes, it's true, it's not a problem, but only in a... I'm sorry?
He
clarifies that it's only in a specific case. It's not in every case. So they adjust. They limit what the Mishnah is referring to. You want to Gemara?
No, I don't want to be on camera.
Really, you don't want to be
By the
on
way,
camera?
you see it on YouTube. You see people whoever sits
Yeah.
here.
Sometimes just an arm.
Me.
It's too late. You walk down the street, you're on the camera. 16 cameras on each corner. They have. Okay. Tanya Nami Hachi was also taught this so in a brisa.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If they know each other, then
It's a problem.
it's a
They're
problem.
friends. If they're
Right.
friends.
If they don't know each other,
Then it's fine. They can sit at the table and eat meat
what
and
if
cheese.
they don't know each other and then they decide, where are you from? Oh, I am from Shalom Aleichem.
Right.
And then they end up knowing each other. So then do they fall in the category of knowing each other? Because my question is, this guy's eating a meat sandwich, this guy's eating a dairy sandwich, they give a Shalom Aleichem to each other. This, if they're not that cleanly at
Right.
eating,
Right.
they're shaking hands and mixing meat and milk,
Right.
and then all of a sudden when they go back to eating their sandwiches, they got
Right. Right. The real concern wasn't it wasn't that. The real concern was that you're eating doesn't that look nice, a French fry thing?
mama's food share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they guests at the same house, or are they guests like at a park that they just sit down at a bench?
Here it seems that they're at an inn. Let's see the brisa. We'll see. There's going to be two opinions in Tosfos. Let's see how this works. So Reb Shimon in this brisa, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Aimer Beis Achsenayim. There's two guests and a sarchel pundik echad that are in one inn. Zeba min Atzafin, Zeba min Adarim. This one comes from the north, and this one came from the south. It means that they don't know each other. Zeba b'chatichasei. This one came with his slice of meat. Zeba b'gvinasei, and this one came with his cheese. Oichel al shulchan echad. Zeba v'zegvina. They can each eat at the table. This one has meat, and this one has cheese. Vein chayshish, and then there's no problem. V'lo yasru. They only forbade this. Ela betvisa achas, with one grabbing. Tvisa means to grasp. So in one grasping. The Gemara says, like in one, tvisa achas sounds like one sandwich. Tvisa achas al kadaitach. So, what is it? What do you mean tvisa achas in one grasping? That's going to be. That's always forbidden. The Gemara says ela ken tvisa achas. What it means is like one grasping. Okay, so now we have two opinions what this means. Ken tvisa achas, Tosfos' first opinion is that they're both on the table with nothing dividing in between them. If there would be something dividing in between them, that's not a problem. So ken tvisa achas is that it's all flat, but you would really need to put up some sort of interruption.
There's like a
That's-
public rig between them.
Well, something that they're not eating from, yes, bread or a jug or something that's in the middle, or a different tablecloth. That would be shtei tfises. Tosfos' second interpretation is that it's tfisa achas means one bill.
One ownership.
If there's one person paying for the lunch or then that's forbidden. The Gemara says, what's the difference who's paying? And the Gemara answers, it doesn't mean really who's paying. It means as if there's one person paying, which means really that if they know each other. If they know each other, it's a
They're
problem.
comfortable enough to share it.
So if they know each other, and that's where we get this thing that makir, if the people know each other. So according to this interpretation, there is no leniency when it says ke'en tvisa achas. There is no leniency to put up something in the middle, because if they know each other, then
One could pay the
according to
bill
the
for
second
both, and
interpretation,
they're considered
we're not dividing the food by where it is and if there's an interruption. We're dividing the food into if they know each. We're dividing by if they know each. If they know each other, it's a problem.
So we learn
That's a
from this,
chumrah.
unless you're willing to pay money, you're not friends. Friends is when it comes to pay the bill.
Well, then the Gemara says ke'en tvisa achas, even if they're both paying, but if they know each other, it's also okay. Amar lei Rabbi Yemar bar Shalmei la Abaya. Rabbi Yemar bar Shalmei says to Abaya, this is a very interesting question he has. Shnei achen umakpidim zeh zeh mahu. Two brothers, they obviously know each other, but they're fighting. They, get your hands off my plate. they don't want to share. They're jealous of each other. He got bigger, I got bigger. It's not fair.
Brothers.
They're never going to share. So is that a problem? They know each other. Amalei. So Abaya responds, Yemekol asrikin asurin, asriki baitas mutarin. We're going to say that all asrikin means a comb. And what it was, they would make matzah, some sort of fancy bread. It's in his commentary, it says like some Syrian sort of bread, where they would design it they would put like a picture in it, and with poking holes or some person that was forbidden because you may deliberate and take time and it could become chametz. So there were no designs allowed. So they said that so one person came along and he developed a mold that it doesn't take long. You just put the dough on it and you put this on the dough, whatever. You can do it very quickly. So they said that's also forbidden. Why? Because how are people going to be able to differentiate? They'll say, oh, you can't use any of these surikin, these sort of combs, designing tools. But sriki baitus, but baitus is that you're allowed. It gets confusing for people. So therefore, this is the rule of light plug. We don't make differentiations. The rule has to be the same across the board. And that's taken from this.
You should have made the inventor should have made the
So
rabbis
basically
partners
with-
in the company.
So with brothers, you can't separate.
You can't. If they know each other, they have to have some sort of separation. They can't be at the same table, one meat and one cheese, because you can't differentiate between them, even though they're fighting, and someone else that knows each other and is not fighting. He says this interesting thing. He says the word baitus is a Greek translation of the name Ezra. It means help. That's from Rabbi Steinfeld. He has that in there. That you're not going to have in the art school. Okay. The Gemara says, according to you, that you don't make these differentiations. Hada Amar Rabasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This that Rabasi says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Here we have Rabbi Yochanan. You have Rabasi on the side. Yesterday we learned Rabami and Rabasi were Kayanim. Remember we said that they were allowed to eat without... Oh, it's up here. They were allowed to eat by someone feeding them, because they were so careful, Kayanim, with the truma, that they won't touch it. So that was, remember we said. Okay. Rabasi says in the name of Rabbi Yechon, Mishain le'yal cholak echad. Someone that only has one garment, he's allowed to wash it on Cholamayid. Normally we don't do laundry on Cholamayid because we don't want you to push off all your clothes, this type of household work for Cholamayid. We want you to prepare for Yom Tov, not to push everything for Yom Tov to do all the work. So they forbade washing on Yom Tov. But however, if someone only has one garment, that's an exception. He said, well, how could that be an exception? We don't make exceptions. We say that everything is the same. All the molds all of the utensils, all of the designs in the stamps, all of the designs in the bread are forbidden except for the stamp that's permitted. We don't say that. The Gemara says, Hasam Amar Mar Baravashi Ezur Mechiachalav. Mar Baravashi explained. This is a big jump. It sounds like Hasam Ha'amar. That was already explained by Mar Baravashi. You see, it was a statement from that was explained by Mar Baravashi on the bottom of the Babylonian, the last of the Amoraim. That was already explained by Mar Baravashi that because it's being washed together with the belt, so then it's clear that he only has one garment. So it's different. You see, normally when someone would wash his shirt, so he would take the belt off and put it on his second shirt. So he should have a belt over his shirt. This guy doesn't have a second shirt. So he doesn't need to take the belt off to put it. He just washes the whole thing with the belt. So
they should have bought wearable towels.
This is an advertisement.
Non-paid for.
The wearable towels. I'm sorry?
Is this the davening belt that they would tighten?
Oh, could be.
You mean the carpet?
Yeah.
No.
They call it a belt
Because if the belt would be for davening, then why is he wearing it the whole time?
But
It's
he
a
was wearing
beged
this
amiyah
one.
tefillah.
What's the difference between davening belt and garter?
No. You see,
Same thing.
we wear a gartel for two reasons. One, because we're supposed to separate the heart from the reproductive organ. And also because we're supposed to have a garment that's unique for davening. And because we wear hats and jackets and the whole day, so it's not unique. So we have a gartel that's something that's special for davening, that we only wear for davening. Okay,
So a belt, you only had one belt. Everybody only had one.
that's what it seems. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Here's the very famous Mishnah in Yeridea. This is a big sugya.
Oh, that makes some time.
The Mishnah says, "Tipas chalav shenafla ala chaticha," a drop of milk that falls on a piece of meat. It's talking about that the piece of meat is in the pot, and there's a machlekes Rashi and Tosfos where in the pot it is, in order for this to work. Tosfos says that it's entirely out of the liquid. So, for example, this you'll be able to see like this. Imagine that I'm putting this into the liquid. This is not magic; it's on the side. So, and then this is in the liquid, and this goes above it. So the second one is out of the liquid, but it's on top of this piece of meat that's partially in the. You follow? And a drop of milk falls on this.
Like a Chullin pot. I mean, not everything is under the
Right,
liquid.
but I have one piece that's totally on top. Why? Because there's a piece sticking out, and this piece is on top of that. Rashi says, no, what are you confusing all of us? There's one piece of meat that's sticking partially out, and a drop of milk falls onto that. Even though it's in the liquid. What's the difference? The difference is, if a piece is in the liquid, does it spread through the whole pot or not? Even though the milk fell on the top. But will that help it spread through? Okay. So, if the piece of meat has, if it's able to give into the piece of meat a flavor, into that piece of meat, then it's aser. Then that piece of meat is aser. What about nir esakadera? Let's say he stirs the pot. It's aser. Then it would have to give the flavor into the whole pot. The Mefarshim all explain that it's talking about he stirred it immediately when it fell in. Otherwise, we're going to have an issue of the piece of meat became treif. You need to nullify the whole meat. We're talking about nullifying the drop of milk.
Wait, just for Lusha, the piece of meat did not become treif.
Came basar b'chalav.
Thank you. Just want to make sure I'm not confusing. 'Cause
Very good.
In modern terminology, it became treif.
I used to have
oh, that's
slap kosher, slap kosher mezuzahs. So I used to have a countertop that we would sit at with bar stools, and the stovetop was on one side of the counter, and we would sit at the other side. And I remember my wife was cooking for Shabbos, and we have over here the kids are sitting and they're eating. So one of the kids was eating some milk, whatever cereal, and it spilt on the counter. And it's okay. Over here's the stove. I mean, you don't touch the stove, but the child took the spoon and was banging into the milk. And then I look carefully at the pot, and I see white dots on the soup pot.
Wow.
So it's mamish like
On the
straight out on the outside, straight out of a Sif and Shulchan Aruch. It's exactly what the Shulchan Aruch says.
But you didn't know that it went in the pot.
It didn't go in the pot. It went outside the pot. Outside the pot. But you see the white dots outside the pot. I remember I called up the Rav. What should I do? I know what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, pot was boiling, and had a cover on it.
He said it's okay.
It was Erev Shabbos. He tells me, just do what it says in Shulchan Aruch. I didn't know, like I could really be lenient. So
I want to know the Rav and Rabbi.
And you could see whether the drops were above or
yeah,
below
very good,
the
very
line.
good, very good. That's exactly the issue.
Probably the problem.
Very good. There's a discussion in Shulchan Aruch if it's above the soup, the food line or not, or if the pot's covered, then it doesn't matter. So on page Kuf Tzaddik, if you have a big Gemara,
Yes, I remember something.
no, it's not going to be in there. But that's this discussion right here on Tipas Chalav Shenafel Al Doifen Akeli. It's in the Hagayis Ashri. Do you see that? On page Kuf Tzaddik. Okay, let's go further.
So what happened? What did we do?
You can use. There's in Shulchan Aruch. There's many opinions, but there's a lenient opinion on Erev Shabbos. If this is the food for Shabbos, that you can be lenient to use all the food to be mevatel those just few drops. What could happen is I could say that the absorption in the wall of the pot all becomes basar b'chalav, and then I have to use the food that's in the pot to nullify all the absorption in the pot, which I'll never be able to do times 60. I can't get the contents to nullify the walls. Okay, but I didn't have to do it. We ate it. It was delicious. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Tamei v'lei mamashi ba'alma da'araisa. Abaya says that the flavor, without the substance, is forbidden biblically. The Isal Kedaitach Derabanan, because if we would say that it's only rabbinical, Mi basar b'chalav, my time aleikum rinon. Why don't we learn from basar b'chalav? See, what's happening here is the milk fell onto the meat. It's possible